After all of the leaks, all of the hype, and all of the anticipation, Assassin's Creed Origins is finally here, and I got to play it on Xbox One X. What's up, everybody? It's Ghost Robo, and today, after so much waiting and so many freaking leaks, Assassin's Creed Origins was finally revealed as the revitalization of the Assassin's Creed franchise, taking place in epic Egypt with a brand new hero and a big, bold world that is larger than any before it in the series. Now, I got to play the game for over an hour, and I'm here to tell you all about it. I'll have the trailer and the gameplay from Microsoft's press conference running in the background, as well as some screenshots, and then tomorrow I actually have my own gameplay, and I'll get to show you in more detail what I talk about today. So if you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. I'll try to incorporate those into the next video and answer as many as I can. But let's kind of walk it back a little bit. This game takes place about 1,000 years before Assassin's Creed 1. You are Bayek, the main hero of this tale. It's in the Cleopatra era of Egypt, and you are basically going through the game to eventually help build the Brotherhood. So this is where the Assassins begin, somewhere in Egypt, somewhere in this game, and it is a massive game. My first impression when I got the controller was, one, goodness gracious, it's gorgeous, and two, why am I not on a camel? Because they start you off on a horse instead of a camel like in the trailers, which is absolutely freaking cool. And frankly, the Egyptian setting just does so much for the game and so much for the franchise. It is drastically different from its European counterparts, and it's such a breath of fresh air. And just personally, it looks freaking awesome. I love the fact that we get to explore pyramids, tombs, the Sphinx, all of the freaking wildlife that exists in that part of the world, the giant rivers. It's a very visually unique and visually, I don't know, there's just something almost mystical about it that wraps you in. And I found myself very captivated by that in the same way that in AC2, I was captivated by that environment. But over the course of AC after AC after AC, I was no longer really transfixed by the European architecture, the European setting, the European style. Something about it just all kind of to blend together, and I think that really flipping to something totally opposite was such a great choice and is the best thing this game has going for it right off the bat. So where we played was about halfway through the game, I guess, and we were hunting the crocodile, who is some sort of villain, not an actual animal, although there are crocodiles, and I did fight one. But this world is really, really impressive. It is populated by all sorts of stuff, all sorts of different cities and villages, all sorts of rivers, all sorts of boats, all sorts of animals, lions, freaking hippos, aforementioned crocodiles, and it's populated by people that are built to be more real than ever before. They have full-on day-night routines, so they go to work, they go home, they go to the bathroom, and this is pivotal not only because it creates a more living, breathing world, but also because your missions will be affected by their cycle and their place in the world. So if you're looking to assassinate a specific target and it's daytime, you may need to learn where he is in the day versus where he is at night, and depending on if he has, say, a whole armada of guards protecting his home, you're going to want to wait and get him actually in the day, whereas you might need to get someone else at night. So there are gameplay implications there, but this is a very big world, and I started off looking down onto a humongous area, and they said what you see you can get, and those mountains off in the distance you can climb, and it was running, like I said, on Xbox One X. It looked really beautiful. It's an alpha version, so it's not finalized in any way. They'll still do graphical passes. I thought it looked really darn good. To me, it didn't look like blow your mind impressive, but it looked like a PC game. It looked like it was running at a very, very pretty level. And so that was exciting. But this is a massive view of this area of the world. It's a huge map. You can travel to a number of different places, a number of big different cities and pyramids and tombs and the Sphinx and all that stuff. But in this open section, I came down to a little outpost and got to check out the combat for the first time. Combat here is new. This is one of the main pillars that they tried to really rework after a year off from Assassin's Creed. And it bears more resemblance now to Dark Souls is a bit of a stretch. I've heard that, but it's more action RPG-ish, and that kind of permeates throughout the entire experience, and we'll touch on that. But combat now can be a whole range of weapons, but it's primarily a shield and either like a sword type weapon or a spear, or there are two-handed heavy weapons, and you also always have a bow. And there are different kinds of these. So there's a loot system, and each of the different weapons have different kinds with different properties, and the higher you climb that loot scale, the more attributes they have. So they might poison their target or cause bleeding, etc. So I started off with just a sword and shield type loadout. And the way it works is that you have light attack on right bumper and you have heavy attack on right trigger. And that heavy attack can be charged up. So you're basically using your default stance to block, and then the X button on an Xbox One controller to dodge, and then right bumper and right trigger are your light and heavies. And you can mix those up into combos. You'll build an aggression meter, a rage meter, based on, I think, taking damage and dealing damage, kind of like a fighting game. And once you do, then you are able to unleash a rage move, which is like a super attack that can be upgraded to combo into other attacks, and it's kind of like an unblockable attack, I believe. It looks pretty cool. And there's guys with shields that you have to charge up your attack for. There's guys that are just regular guys that are more dodging. There's big enemies that come in with multiple attacks in a row, and you have to sort of time your dodges. And for the most part, it felt fast and fluid. And again, I liked how it was more of an open-ended combat than what we got previously from the Assassin's Creed series. And it's a little odd because you don't have a block button. You don't have a hold the shield button like I was expecting from something like Dark Souls. Instead, as long as you're not attacking, you will block. But apparently some stuff later on in the game allows you to parry, which would be cool, and I think that will add a lot to the combat because it is new, it is better. I wanted a little more depth. It still feels a little generic to me. I don't know. I just wanted a little more extra oomph there from the combat. And maybe once you get the parries, you will experience that. It's much more one-on-one combat than it is group mentality. And it's a lot more freeform in terms of kind of just running through this little settlement and shooting guys with arrows. I pulled out one of my bows that was able to fire 5 arrows horizontally for close range extra damage, and then picking guys off from afar with a normal bow and arrow. And some of the bow and arrows had like precision as the top rated skill, or damage, or things like that. So it was different depending on what you wanted, or ones that were better against animals. It was pretty interesting. And there were times where I kind of either got stuck in animations or felt like I dodged, but I got caught in an attack. And they said they continuing to work on gameplay and animations, and that stuff wasn't final, so maybe that'll tighten up a little bit in the final version. I later got to fight against a boss, and I feel like combat shined better in the arena scenario than it did in the early settlement. But we'll touch on that boss in a bit. It's really cool. They've introduced boss fights, and they wanted to bring unique bosses with patterns and things like that to Assassin's Creed, and I think that's awesome. I always love bosses. We don't get a lot of them, and usually they're dumb, like a freaking helicopter. So this is a nice, cool addition. So after the settlement, I cleared that out, and I moved down towards the riverbank where my mission was. You have a new type of eagle vision this time, and it is true-on eagle vision because you have an eagle, Senu, who helps you out, and basically is the owl from Far Cry Primal. You fly it in the air, and you can hover and then mark targets. Eventually you'll be able to attack those targets and stun them. You can see different objectives. You can see different little side missions. You can see a whole lot from the skies. And it controls really well, and it's real eagle vision instead of just like a magical sense that you have. So no more detective mode. Now it's all done from the sky above, and that's pretty cool. So I used that to kind of scan the area, see what was going on. A lot of side missions, much more of a quest structure this time around. They wanted to fill out the world and make it feel, instead of operating a little bit more linearly, it now is just kind of like they've blown the lid off that, and there's just stuff to do everywhere. And as you may have seen in some of the leaks, there are a bunch of like temples and things of that nature, pyramids and whatnot, for you to explore. And I didn't get to see any of that, but that's, to me, one of the most exciting parts, is seeing how they deal with like puzzles, how they deal with exploration, how they deal with secrets. And with a loot system, I think it might work even better than before, because now you can be rewarded for that, not just with a check mark on your list of a million things to do, but with some great gear or some great weapon or some great shield, because gear also plays a part here, and a huge skill system. They have a giant skill tree that you will level up through 3 different paths, one that is more to do with kind of ranged combat, one to do with more melee combat, and one to do with more tools. It was interesting to see that it was more combat focused rather than like, a stealth tree, an aggressive tree, and an in-between tree. But if you read through the specifics of the individual skills, you can see that you can definitely spec for a more stealth playthrough or a more straightforward playthrough. And it wasn't as big as I expected. I thought there'd be more skills. They said they were inspired, by stuff like the sphere grid, and that I'm hoping that feels fun as you go through the levels. I played a level 20, I believe, Bayek, and he had some stuff unlocked, and while I was there, I unlocked air assassinations, which was pretty cool. They definitely have boat stuff in the game, like Black Flag. This is the Black Flag team, but it seems to be a little bit more streamlined and a little less omnipresent than it was in Black Flag. Now, they've reworked some things. They took the sprint off of a button. Now it's just how far you press that stick is how far you'll run, and A is for your parkouring. And it's very automatic, and whether you like that it's automatic or you don't like that it's automatic, that's kind of up to you. But you could very seamlessly and fluidly leap from building to building across ropes, through trees. They really wanted to make this game as climbable as possible. And at one point I was climbing up just a freaking mountain, a rock wall, and your dude just goes up it. It just works. And there is a little bit of aiming in terms of you can't just like be going straight and expect that he's going to follow everything perfectly. You do have to aim in that direction, otherwise you'll end up jumping off or jumping down. But it is pretty automatic with that A button. Now, they also introduced a crouch button, which came in huge handy for sneaking up to that settlement and getting a stealth kill. And it also comes in handy as you're navigating the world and trying to, complete some of the missions. Now, the mission structure, from what I saw, was very Assassin's Creed-like. I would hope that they have continued to expand upon that with this bigger world, with a new focus on trying to revitalize and reinvent some of the Assassin's gameplay. I hope that there are unique missions that take advantage of the huge world and the huge diversity that they have there. So I only got to see this one area, this one village, but it was really good. I feel like it definitely felt like Assassin's Creed. This isn't something that's going to flip the franchise upside down. It's not something that's even going to flip it, a quarter. It's more, to me, it feels like an adjustment that refines mechanics more than refines the overarching idea. And I think that's probably a good thing. People love Assassin's Creed. I think they just got bored with some of the mechanics, some of the nuances, and some of the lack of innovation in some of the areas. So that stuff is there, and probably a best of both worlds balance of like, okay, generally the structure, the foundation remains the same, and we're going to mess with and alter and improve the combat, the movement, and the world itself. Now, I want to wrap up with the second portion of the demo that I played, and again, I'll go into greater detail and more specifics when we see this together tomorrow, but it was an arena-style battle, and it had me facing off against waves of enemies. Now, this is where I really got to hone my combat skills and really put sort of that practice to the test of, is this combat something that is not only different, but fun and better? And I think it's both. I'm a big fan of the Batman-style combat. I think that was a really awesome system when it first existed, and I still kind of like it in Batman. In Assassin's Creed, I am glad that they decided to go with something more. Personally, I wish it was a bit more complex. I wish they would have pushed the skill barrier a little bit farther down the road. But as it stands now, it does require dodging. And the boss battle was fun. He was a big, huge guy that you'll get to see tomorrow. And he had some massive attacks. And it was a lot of like dodging and attacking. I did feel like the more aggressive you are, the more of an advantage you have. And there definitely was something to being overly aggressive, at least with a lot of enemy types, and not really playing so much of the baiting game, not playing so much of the cat and mouse, but more of just the freaking dog going in there for the attack. But it was fun. It's cool to see that they have modified combat, and I do like the fact that weapons, individual weapons play a big part in the combat. Like, okay, if you're going to use something two-handed, if you're going to use something heavy, if you're going to use a spear, if you're going to use more of a sword, if you're going to use bow, and then where you sort of invest your skill points to support whichever combat strategy you like best. I think that entire system of making the character more your own in terms of gameplay is cool. And they did talk about how they see, certain Assassin's players play as what they call warriors, just going like all crazy and basically the guns blazing version of AC. And then the stealth players, and that they don't feel that one is better than the other. And so the game is sort of designed so that you can play in any mix of those and still have fun and still enjoy their systems and still enjoy this big, bold world of Egypt. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. Like I mentioned, I'll be taking some of those and answering them. So in conclusion, I had a really great time with Assassin's Creed Origins, and I think it is shaping up very, very nicely. The verdict's still out on the final sort of review or the final take on the game because there's so much that we haven't seen. It looked good on Xbox One X. I don't yet know how I feel about Xbox One X, and it's a $500 price tag, but the game looked gorgeous. It's a really big, beautiful world, and I'm very curious to see some of the other elements of the game and how those pan out. The tombs and the explorative side of AC Origins, I want to see if there is mystery, if there's intrigue, if the plot is engaging enough to keep me going forward for more than just that open world, and how they continue to vary up and innovate on the gameplay. I feel like Ubisoft did some good work in Watch Dogs 2 with meaningful mission design and fun mission design, and I hope they're able to carry over that progress to Assassin's Creed Origins and build on some things and remove some things. The lesser liked missions of the like follow missions and the eavesdropping missions, that stuff can freaking go. And if it's replaced with more solid gameplay-centric, enjoyable missions that take advantage of this world around you and the different skill sets that Bayek has and the improved combat and a renewed focus on bosses and assassinations, loot, weaponry, exploration, and diversity. I think this could be a really special one. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments down below. I'll try to answer those as best I can. Hit that like button if you are pumped for more Assassin's Creed Origins. I'll have that gameplay ASAP. Until that time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Drink so much, all have a fantastic day, and we will see you all later.